Welcome to the 5-2 Diet Podcast. All the tips and information you need to lose weight and feel great with intermittent fasting. I'm Kate Harrison from the 52dietbook.com. I've lost 31 pounds, that's 14 kilograms. I've written 4 books about this lifestyle and it's transformed how I eat and how I feel. This podcast features ideas, interviews and encouragement to help you 5-2. Hello and welcome to podcast number 10, which I hope you're going to find truly inspiring. It features my interview with the lovely Simone Illger, who's lost over 4 stone in weight, which is impressive enough, but it's been even more of a challenge for Simone because of her disability, which means exercise is difficult, if not impossible. As you'll hear, Simone has a very practical and humorous approach to the issues she's had to deal with since she was born affected by thalidomide. That was a drug prescribed to some women during pregnancy more than 50 years ago. It caused their babies to be born with a range of impairments, including shortened limbs. After first developing weight problems in primary school, Simone tried everything to lose weight and was even considering stomach surgery before 5-2 came along. Then she started calorie counting, followed immediately by intermittent fasting, and it was a revelation. We talk about everything from home gyms and sports bras to unconscious eating and how many delicious dishes you can make with cauliflower. I came away from chatting to Simone feeling anything is possible if you put your mind to it, and I hope you'll feel the same. And for links about the topics she raises and to her blog, go to the 5-2dietbook.com/podcast 10. I am really excited to have Simone Illger with me today for today's podcast. Simone, hello.
Hi, Kate.
Now, Simone has been a stalwart of our 5-2 Facebook group for a long time now. She's always ready with great recipes and inspiration, especially to lots of our members who struggle to lose weight because they can't exercise because of disability or illness. So, Simone, to start off with, you had a weight issue since your childhood, really, didn't you? Could you tell me a bit more about that?
I'm one of 3 girls. I'm the oldest. My 2 sisters are quite close in age to myself. There's just 3 years between me and my younger sister. So unfortunately, I can't blame genetics because both my sisters are fit, healthy and very active. But they are both about a foot taller than me. My lack of stature is due to my disability. It affects my legs. But also it means that I'm less mobile and I find it difficult to walk any great distance. So therefore, I can't eat the same amount as somebody else my height or the same as my sisters or my husband ate, I've discovered. One of the many discoveries I've made during my weight loss journey, but that I couldn't rely on burning calories alone to get rid of the food that I eat or the calories that I eat.
That was something that became quite evident from really early on in your life, didn't it?
Yes, although I can look back now and think it was a useful excuse. The fact that I was overweight was because of my lack of mobility and the fact that I was disabled, rather than the fact that I just ate too much for the little movement that I did and for the fact that I had shortened arms and legs. My arms finish at about elbow length and my femurs or thigh bones are shortened by about 20 centimetres each side as a result of thalidomide that my mum took when she was pregnant with me.
And that's something that affected an awful lot of people over a very short period of time, didn't it?
Yes, it affected thousands of people worldwide. There are about 450 of us thalidomide impaired people still alive in the UK today.
You said that was almost a little bit of an excuse.
I think all children like food and eating and treats. And I didn't eat any differently to my younger sisters. But the fact of the matter was that I moved a lot less because of my disability. I don't think when I was really young I used it as an excuse, but most definitely I did as I got older and the weight didn't disappear. And I did try various ways to lose weight. My mum was quite concerned about me, I remember, at secondary school, and I went off to a hospital in London to have some tests just to make sure that there wasn't any reason why my disability was affecting my weight. But that produced the results that no, the reason I was overweight was I needed to reduce the calories I took in. But this was going back to like the 1970s, and although they gave me diet sheets, it was really difficult to follow a calorie counted diet because nutritional information wasn't available as it is today on food. So it was kind of set sheets about what you could eat. For example, breakfast, 1 slice of toast with 3 ounces of marmalade or something. But it got very boring and very repetitive. And I can remember my mum sending me off to school with a packed lunch of salad and cottage cheese, which I'm sure cottage cheese was much more disgusting in those days. My friends would tease me and I didn't like it. I didn't like having to eat that whilst I was watching them eat the stodgy school dinners and puddings that we were offered in those days, you know, sponge and custard and chips quite often. So it wasn't fun trying to lose weight that way.
And once you'd left school, did that weight gain continue?
It wasn't ever something that I kept a really close eye on. So I can't say how much I weighed back then. But as I reached sort of teens and early 20s, I didn't like being overweight. And I tried various ways to try and combat that. I joined slimming clubs such as Weight Watchers and Slimming World and whatever else, you know, I tried. I can remember eating these disgusting toffee things called AIDS, I think they were.
Oh yes, they were called AIDS back in the day before there was AIDS the disease.
Exactly. Otherwise I don't think they would have ended up being called that. And they were quite expensive, but I was prepared to try anything. I can remember buying weight loss tablets that were just supposed to swell up in your stomach. So, you know, I tried all the easy, quick fix ways, but I suppose that, you know, they weren't going to work. Now I realise what the answer to weight, you know, how to address my weight loss. I realise that there isn't a quick fix way of doing it. There isn't an easy way of doing it. And also, I believe that you need to employ as many tools as possible to help you on your journey, including addressing anything in your life that affects your weight. So if you're an emotional eater, for example, you know, addressing things that make you turn to food for comfort. Thankfully, that's not me, I don't think, an emotional eater, but certainly lack of mobility was one of the issues for me. And just eating too much and loving my food too much and not being aware of how many calories I was taking in.
So fast forward a bit to when you decided, right, I'm really going to take this in hand, and you'd actually taken steps to reduce your weight quite seriously before 5-2 came along, hadn't you?
Yes, a couple of my Thalidomide friends had gone as far as to have stomach bypass surgery, and this was something I was seriously considering. And I spoke to them about it, both on Facebook and in person, to realise quite quickly that it wasn't an easy way out. It's serious, major surgery, and it compromises what you're able to eat for the rest of your life. And clearly all surgery carries a risk. So I thought, right, before I go down that route, and I still hadn't totally put it out of my mind, I made up my mind to start to log the number of calories that I was eating. And I did this on a website, and within a matter of days, I soon saw why it was that I was overweight. I was just eating far too many calories. But quite quickly, my love of cooking, and I really do enjoy cooking, came into its own. I started to make interesting and new low-calorie recipes, and I quite enjoyed the challenge of trying to put together a meal that was tasty but also low-calorie. So instead of food being my foe, it became my friend. I realised quickly that there were some things that would never again be able to feature in my diet, such as high-calorie mayonnaise, the sort that people like, that was 90 calories for a teaspoonful. So little things that I learnt along the way like that opened my eyes to the fact that, wow, a salad is healthy until you put 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise on it, and then suddenly you might as well eat a proper filling meal, because you've undone all the good you've done preparing that meal by sticking the mayonnaise on it. So I started to make changes that I now realise will be changes for life, because I can't look at a jar of mayonnaise in the same light anymore. The same way that, although peanuts are quite good for you in moderation, I would munch my way through probably over 1,000 calories worth of peanuts, because one tiny little single packet of peanuts is about 600 calories. That's the sort of packet that you'll buy in a pub to eat. I realised that I couldn't eat those things because they contained far too many calories, and that I would rather spend my calories eating more food but that was lower in calories.
So you were already experiencing this increased awareness, which I think a lot of people only get to when they begin 5-2, because once you've got only 500 calories to play with on a fast day, you are ultra aware of the number of calories. When did you then get to hear about 5-2 as an approach?
I can't remember exactly when, but I know it was about the time that you brought out your first book, and I did buy that first book. I watched the Michael Mosley Horizon programme, and like you, I found that really interesting, although it didn't really concentrate that much on 5-2 as we know it now. But I thought I will try it. I'll try it and I'll see what happens. I really didn't hold out much hope. I really didn't think that I could be somebody that would manage all day with 500 calories, or manage without eating, or manage on just one meal a day. But I do it regularly now, and what I like about 5-2 is the fact, to me, it's an all or nothing. I like to feel that I have got control over the food on those days, and that the food hasn't got control over me. I'm not going to let the food win, and I know that if I get to 9 o'clock at night and I'm on top of it, which I can do easily now and regularly, that's it. I've completed my fast day, and that tomorrow will be a regular day, and how much more food you seem able to eat. But having said that, I think my mind is in a place now that on a fasting day, I don't feel as though I'm missing out, and I don't feel deprived. I actually enjoy the challenge of what I can fit in for 500 calories. So my meal is always meticulously planned to ensure that I maximise the quantity I can eat in terms of filling and nutritious food for as few calories as possible.
Can you give a few examples?
Yes, I choose to have all my calories in one meal. So during the day, I don't have any milky drinks. I'll just have fruit tea and water. And to start off with, that was a huge challenge in itself. I realised that caffeine had a real hold over me, and I experienced headaches for the first couple of times I fasted, which I'm not somebody who gets headaches, so that was a bit of a shock. But I soon realised it was the caffeine withdrawal rather than the food withdrawal. A fast day meal for me would be lots and lots of low-calorie vegetables. So the sorts of vegetables I enjoy on a fast day are cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, butternut squash, spinach, mushrooms. That's the sort of thing I would buy weekly, and I would try to eat with that a piece of protein. So it's likely to be fish or chicken. Doesn't necessarily have to include protein, but I think protein is really important to give you some energy and also to keep you feeling fuller for longer. And if I'm hungry after I've eaten my meal, I'll have something like some cubed melon or some satsumas, which again are really low calorie and filling.
Was that something you started right from the beginning, just having a single meal?
Yes, I think so. I have tried once or twice having something earlier in the day, but I find that sort of kick-starts my appetite, and suddenly I'm hungry again by about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Whereas if I don't eat anything, I don't really think too much about food, and I think it's helped me to recognise what true hunger feels like, although I don't think any of us can, in the Western world, really understand what true hunger feels like, unless, people don't have access to food. It's not going to kill you feeling hungry. It's not going to make you keel over or faint. And it was an eye-opener to me, really, as to how easily I can manage on one meal a day. And I was saying this just last night, eating my one meal do you know what? I could actually, if I had to, survive on eating just one meal a day. I could do that. I'm not sure I could survive on 500 calories a day, and indeed, that wouldn't be healthy, but I could quite happily wait all day and have one meal as long as it was a meal that I enjoyed and filled me up.
I agree with you, actually, and that's a huge surprise to me as well, as someone who was always a bit of a snacker, had totally bought into the belief that you had to have breakfast even if you didn't feel like it. And it's actually very liberating to realise that although hunger is a signal, you can ignore it and you can get on with what you need to do until you have the time to eat.
And I think it's useful to find those other ways to distract yourself from the hunger. It's easy to recognise, okay, I'm thinking about food, this isn't good. And sometimes the way I distract myself is actually to go off and start preparing my evening meal, which sounds really odd, but all I'm doing is chopping up vegetables. So I'm not tempted to eat a piece of raw butternut squash or put a spinach leaf in my mouth. If I really, on occasion in the middle of the day, if I thought actually I need to eat something, I would eat something, but that's very rare, really very rare indeed. And I like to now try and plan which 2 days a week I'm going to fast so that I can fit those around social events. So I've already done my 2 fasts for this week, both Monday and Wednesday. And it's great because I can think, right, that's it now for the weekend. And I am my weight loss this week with 2 good fasts, and I've weighed in a day early today. Friday's normally my weigh-in day, is 3.2 pounds, which is an exceptional loss for me because obviously now I'm quite close to my goal weight.
So tell us a bit in figures then about your weight loss journey, where you started and where you're at now.
Okay. When I started my weight loss journey, I was 14 stone exactly, which was a good place to start because you don't forget that figure. It kind of stays in your head forever. And the other good thing about starting on 14 stone exactly was that I only had to lose 1 pound and I was already in the 13 somethings. My height is only 4'9", so I'm not a very tall person. And because of the fact I've got part of my leg and part of my arm missing, I should probably weigh less than someone of my height. And the other thing is that although I'm short, that is because of my disability, and I will never be a petite person. I'm never likely to be a size 8 or a size 10. Both my sisters are size 12, 14, and they're both very tall. They're both 5'9", 5'10". So that was my height. My waist, I seem to remember, was something, I haven't got the figures right in front of me, but was something awful, like 40 inches. And I remember laughing at the time that my waist was virtually the same as my height was, which obviously was an awful place to start.
Oh, yes.
And I wore a size 24 in clothes, which many people are really amazed about when I tell them this now, because a lot of people say, oh, I never thought you were that big, or, oh, you're never that big. And I suppose that sort of helped me ignore it for a long time. Plus, I think the fact that I'd had quite a serious car accident which further impacted upon my mobility. So as a direct consequence of that car accident, I was able to walk less distance. In fact, for a good period of time, I wasn't able to walk at all because I broke my leg and I couldn't use crutches. Now I've lost 4.5 stone, so I'm 9.5 stone as of this morning, which I'm very pleased about, because 9.5 stone when I set off on my journey, which was 3 years ago to the day next week, I really never expected to get to the goal that I set for myself, which was 9.5 stone.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
What great timing to do the interview.
Yeah, well, no, I do have to say I've hit that goal before. And then, Christmas happened. But I'm sure there's a lot of people that will be listening to this that know that feeling of, oh, Christmas happened and things went a bit off the road. But I'm determined never, ever to be 10 stone something again. I would like to lose a bit more weight. I would like to get to 9 stone and try and maintain between 9 and 9.5 stone. But I know just how easy it is to put on 2 or 3 pounds in a week, especially if you've got a holiday or a weekend away. So I want to give myself a little bit more leeway. I think 4.5 stone, I always think of it in terms of newborn babies weighing about £7, and that's 9 babies. 9 newborn babies that I was carrying around with me every single day of my life, in every single aspect of my life. I've got a child. She's not a child anymore. She's 18, so she's an adult technically. And when she was born, she was £6.13, £6.13, I think, which was more or less the £7. And I know what that felt like. I know what it felt like to carry her in the last stages of pregnancy. And I wonder to myself sometimes, how on earth did I get around carrying all that weight? How did I do it? And I sometimes wish in a bizarre way that I could have that weight back just for an hour to remind myself of how it felt, because when you lose weight gradually, you soon forget how you felt when you were that big. You forget how restricted you were and in how much pain I was in, and how limited my mobility was, because as a result of losing the weight, I have been able to move about more, I've been able to walk more, and I've been able to do more, which all helps with burning calories.
Absolutely. When did you start to feel better?
I think I started to feel better almost immediately that I put my mind to losing the weight, because I was doing something about it and I felt positive. I felt that, I was going to be okay and that I would manage to do this.
So tell me about the increased mobility and the kind of exercise routine that you've managed to work into your life now.
I think exercise is great, but I think exercise and weight loss need to be looked at as two separate things, because I think if anybody's too reliant upon exercise and they injure themselves or they're unable to exercise for any period of time, they're suddenly reliant upon calorie intake alone. And because exercise is quite difficult for me, I've always been very keen to make sure I can still get by on the calories that I need just to get through a day. But I did slowly start to introduce exercise into my life, having never really exercised in a formal way for most of my life. I started off by going swimming for an hour a week, and soon I wanted to do more than that. So I had a session with a personal trainer and looked at some of the ways that I could become more active and move around more. And at the gym that I went to, there wasn't a lot of the equipment I could use, but it certainly sparked ideas in my head. And I came home and kitted out my garage with some rubber matting on the floor and borrowed the ex-husband's treadmill. That was over 2 years ago and I've still got it. A gym ball, some elastic resistance training bands, a stepper, a wobble board. And I bought myself a good sports bra. That was the most vital part of the equipment, I think. And I started to create a little exercise regime for myself, which I can look back at now when I very first started and remember that I couldn't really walk for any great length of time, like maybe a minute or 2 minutes on the treadmill. Whereas now, although I do hold on, I've had a bar sort of put onto the treadmill so I can hold on when I'm walking because my balance isn't great. But I can walk for 20 minutes without stopping, and I can walk around the block where I live, which even before my car accident was quite a major piece of walking for me.
And how does that feel? It sounds liberating.
Yeah, I never used to walk for pleasure. I walked because I had to get from A to B. So the idea of looking out of the window and seeing that there's some nice blue sky and thinking, right, I'm going to walk around the block, which the block isn't very interesting, but I actually bump into neighbours and I can chat to them. Or more recently, I've increased the distance of my block to include a nearby playing fields, and to look at that playing fields and think, wow, I've walked all the way around the outside of that playing field is a really good feeling. I'm also able to walk to the local pub, which isn't very far. It's probably less than half a mile. It's probably like a quarter of a mile. But our local pub has been recently refurbished and taken on by new management and does some great food. So although I'll walk to the pub to enjoy some great food, which is what I've got planned for tonight with a lot of the neighbours, I know that walking there and walking back will burn up some of those calories that I'm going to eat.
Overall then, your life sounds as though it's been transformed by your weight loss. Yes,
I think my car accident and resulting lack of mobility really impacted hugely on my confidence. And you've met me, Kate, so you know I'm quite a confident person. But I'm talking about confidence in walking out on my own somewhere, because at one point, if I'd fallen over, I could have easily got myself back off the floor. Nowadays, I don't think I could do that. I've not tried it. My ankle's far too damaged to do it in the way that I used to be able to do it. So the only way I can get myself up now is if someone pulls me up, or if I literally crawl up a nearby chair, which if you're out in the street, you don't find things that you can crawl up to get yourself back onto your feet. But I do try and walk where I know that I'm capable of walking the distance. So, for example, tonight when we go to the pub, I know that I'm going to walk. I know I can walk that far, and I'll have somebody with me. So that really isn't a big issue for me. Whereas at one point I would have said, no, I can't do that. That's too far. And actually, anyone that's listening to this who has a disability or who is very overweight will really understand that feeling of panicking, because you're running out of breath, you're running out of steam, and there's nowhere around that you can just perch to get your breath back and have a rest. And now I know I can push myself beyond that, and I'll get through that, and that I won't collapse in a heap, and that my heart won't be pounding in my chest as I remember it used to. I don't have that panicky feeling anymore.
That's such an interesting insight, and I think those of us who don't have those mobility issues wouldn't really have thought of that at all. So it's lovely to hear that and hear the difference and the change it's brought. How about your friends and family? How have they reacted to the new you?
I think very quickly they forget the old me. My younger sister, both my sisters, as I've said before, are both very physically active. And these are both, I'm 52, 53 this year. Both my sisters are, 2 and 3 years younger than myself. So they're both in, one's 50 and one's 50 this year. One's 50 something. And maybe because I was born with my disability, they have almost gone over the top in how much physical activity they do. That could be an explanation, I don't know. But things like rock climbing and cycling huge distances and going to the gym regularly and canoeing great lengths of water aren't what, as far as I know, most people in their middle ages do. Most of us at that stage like to sit in front of the television and do not very much. But my younger sister does still say to me she's really pleased that I lost the weight, because she did worry for me and for my future health. And I know that I have, that it's not just, I was always happy in my bigger body, I thought, but I didn't know any differently. Now that I'm not carrying around that weight, I know how much extra pain I experienced, and I know how much more tiring everything was. But the other good thing is it's the changes that you make inside your body. I have got enough difficulties in my life because of my disability without adding to those by having diabetes or high blood pressure or having a stroke or having a heart attack. I really can't afford to give myself additional problems. So I'm really happy in the knowledge now that I've reduced my risks of developing those. I've done everything I can do. We can always do more, but I'm happy that I've probably substantially reduced my risks.
Yeah, I think that's what many of us feel, that it's lovely to have the physical evidence when you look in the mirror or when you're trying on clothes, but the science behind fasting and leaving a gap between the meals and eating a bit less those once or twice a week is the really interesting bit, and the motivation for many of us, especially when perhaps you're feeling a bit peckish on a fast day. I remind myself of that quite regularly, because we want to be around for as long as possible and in as good shape as possible, don't we?
And I'll just add something there actually, which is, I think the really good thing about a fast day is, to start off with, I would find myself walking past food and being tempted to just pop a piece in my mouth, or one of those sweets in my mouth, or a biscuit, or a broken cracker as I was putting them into the tin, or as I often do, getting into the car and eating an extra strong mint. That's one of my vices. And I now stop myself and I realise all those times when I would just put something in my mouth to eat for the sake of it, not because I was hungry, but just because it was there and I saw it. And I think that is a habit I've managed to break now, that I can see food, it can be in front of me, I can smell it, I can touch it if I want to, but I don't have to eat it. I don't have to. That is my choice. And the feeling of triumph that you get when you've managed to resist is so much better than the moment of enjoyment when you give in and indulge in something that is full of calories.
Yes, it doesn't mean that we never enjoy delicious food at all, and I think that's what some people who haven't tried 5-2 think, that you're going to have a fairly joyless existence. It's actually the opposite though, isn't it? Because you're not having to count calories the entire time. So if you really, really want something that tastes and smells and looks delicious, that's an option. But it's that automatic unconscious eating that I think is the undoing for lots of us.
Yeah, and I think one thing I really realise is how often trips out of the house centred around food. So I couldn't actually leave the house without including some sort of eating. For example, let's go to the garden centre, or we could have lunch in the pub afterwards, or let's go to the garden centre and have coffee and a piece of cake, or let's go into town and we can have lunch afterwards. And what I do now is I preempt those trips out by preparing something that's healthy and ready to eat, so that I can say, let's go into town now and we'll come back and have lunch here. And I know that the minute I walk in the door, there's food ready and waiting for me. I don't have to turn to a slice of bread or something. I can just sit down and start eating.
Talking of favourites, have you got any fast day favourite meals that you couldn't do without?
Well, you know about my love of cauliflower rice, but I almost did turn myself completely off it by eating far too much. But I've now moved to roasted cauliflower, which I love. I make cauliflower steaks by just cutting a cauliflower into big chunks and spraying it with some 1-calorie oil and roasting it in the oven.
Cauliflower roasted is so intense and really deeply savoury. I think a lot of people would be astonished.
I think all food takes on a completely different flavour when you roast it. It's the same with butternut squash. Even if I'm going to put it in a curry or something, I still roast it because I think it intensifies the flavour and it adds a sweetness to it. So butternut squash is another favourite, very versatile. You can eat it in lots of different ways. Mushrooms, I think, are another one, which you get a lot of mushrooms for your calories. So breakfast at the weekend is often mushrooms on toast or mushrooms with egg or just mushrooms. And I'm not one of these people that just sticks to one or two things. I like variety. Certainly on a fast day, I probably eat over and above my 5 portions of fruit and vegetables, that's for sure.
It definitely encourages you, I think, to experiment with things which are going to keep the taste buds excited on a fast day. And I think that if you are in any way interested in cooking, it's great. And in our group, we've got lots of ideas for people to try out, and you've been great at posting really appetizing photos, so thank you for that. Thinking about the groups, I know that you obviously know a lot of people through your campaigning on the thalidomide issue and so on. Have you been spreading the word, and have you encouraged friends or acquaintances to get going on 5-2?
I know that a few of my thalidomide friends are actually on the Facebook website, at least 4 or 5 that I know of, so I know that fasting is working for some of us. I don't think fasting will work for everyone, and I'm sure you'll agree with me there, that it has to be something that you try out. You might not use it all the time, you might use it occasionally. I haven't really got to the point yet where I feel that I'm happy to maintain without still logging everything I eat. So I'm sure that 5-2 in some form or another will help me for the rest of my life. But I do think it's so easy because it's just 2 days a week when you really need to concentrate so much on ensuring that you don't stray above too far above the 500 calories.
It's a great strategy. It's a tool. You don't have to do it all the time, and that's what I think is the great thing about it. I agree with you. Not everyone can face fasting, but I think for lots of us, getting in touch with our appetite like that is a great way to go on. Just finally, Simone, because you've had so many great ideas and a great story to share with people. If somebody is considering starting fasting, perhaps somebody who has got mobility issues due to disability or illness, what advice would you give to them?
I would say that we all know that it's a fact of trying to lose weight that you need to eat less and move more. For those of us that are unable to move more, or perhaps unable to move at all very much, that we do need to rely upon reducing our intake of calories. And 5-2 is great because it doesn't take any time. That's the other thing, is exercise can take a great deal of time. And for me, it's getting changed in and out of exercise clothing that adds to the amount of time it takes. 5-2 doesn't take time. It just fits into your everyday life. And if someone wants to lose weight in an efficient and effective way, I think they should give 5-2 a go and just see if it's for them.
That's fantastic. It's been great to hear what you've done, what you've achieved, and I know that if people join the Facebook group, they will definitely see your fantastic recipes there. But thank you for joining us on the podcast.
That's all right. It's been nice speaking to you.
For more free tips, recipes and information, visit the5-2dietbook.com. Follow me on Twitter @the52diet, or download free samples of the books online at Amazon. Join in the lifestyle change everyone is talking about.